And so traditionally, Centers for Spiritual Living and all the churches that are a part of that do in the month of January what they call going back to the basics. And so today we are joining the rest of the organization in doing that. And so the first week of January covers the first chapter in the Science of Mind textbook, which is actually called The Thing Itself. And so in that chapter, what it really talks about is the science of mind's understanding of God. Understanding of God or spirit or that universal presence by whatever name you choose to call it. And so the title of my talk today is In the Beginning, God. And so you all know that the very first words of the Christian Bible say, in the beginning, God. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. The earth was formless and void, and darkness was over the surface of the deep. And the Spirit of God was moving over the surface of the waters. And so, in the beginning, before form, before planets and people and molecules and atoms, there was only the life principle. There was only spirit. There was only this creative love intelligence. That's what Ernest Holmes calls mind. That is what the quantum physicists call consciousness. That is the ground of all being, and that, by whatever name you call it, is from whence everything, the all, has been created, and it is that power and that presence that continues to create all that is created. And so in the Science of Mind textbook, Ernest Holmes says, creation is the result of God's self-perception or self-contemplation. You know, and I've known that for years, and I'm thinking, what exactly does that mean? You know, creation is the result of God's self-contemplation. And so I've actually changed the words so that it actually makes more sense to me, but really means the same thing. And what I change it to is, out of the infinite's self-recognition, out of that presence recognizing that which it is, potential becomes actual, or potential becomes materialized. And you know, every single religion in the world has a creation story about how things came to be. And I love the Hindu creation story because it is such in alignment with that, but a visual way of seeing it. And so the Hindu creation story says that Brahma, God, exhaled, and that exhalation became this physical world that we see. And so both of those things are saying that everything has come out of this one, and that one is contained within all. The essence of that one is the very essence of everything. And so in the world of quantum physics, which is, you know, the world of the study of the science of subatomic particles, so you have molecules that are made of atoms. It's underneath the atoms, what is smaller than the atoms. What has been discovered, the smallest thing that they can measure in that world of science is called a quark. And a quark is literally made of light. Hence, let there be light. That light is contained literally in everything that exists. And what those scientists have come to discover also is that light is energy and intelligence that cannot be separated. They're like two sides of the same coin. They can't separate them out. This thing we call mind, consciousness, life principle is intelligence and energy. And so that energy, that intelligence then is contained within everything and is the very fabric of everything. That means then that nothing can be separate from the presence of God. Nothing can be separate or apart from that life force energy, that life force intelligence, that thing we call God. It imbues everything. It maintains everything. It sustains everything, because it is the very energy of life. And so in that first chapter of the Science of Mind textbook, it says, behind the individual is the universal, which has no limits. In this concept alone lies the possibility of eternal and endless expansion. In that concept alone. That means we are made out of that which is limitless. The problem is, as you all know, that is not what we experience all the time. In fact, oftentimes we see ourselves as quite limited, yes? We forget that our life is that life of God. We forget that we live in this field of endless possibility and of boundless potential. We forget that our life is that life force energy manifested here, sustained and maintained by that one presence. We forget that we are emanations of that love intelligence. Instead, we think that we are children of our parents, that we are people of this earth, instead of infinite expressions of that one. And then we also don't just see ourselves as separate and limited, but we look at the world that way too, that it is separate and limited. And therefore we get angry and we get frustrated and in turn often feel hopeless about what's going on in the world. We get angry and frustrated and feel hopeless about wars and the economy and racism and inequality. We get frustrated with the things going on in our own personal lives, like when we don't have enough money, or when we aren't experiencing good health, or when there are difficulties and challenges in our relationships. All of the while we are being angry and frustrated, we are forgetting that life itself, that life principle and all that it is, yearns to express. It yearns to unfold itself as good and as peace and as wholeness and as love, as intelligence, as beauty. It yearns to express itself as joy and perfection and order because that's its nature. And its nature is to unfold. Its nature is to express. Its nature is to become all that is. Because that divine presence and that infinite intelligence, that life force, desires to express not just in part, but in fullness. Therefore, it is always desiring to express as the good that we are seeking to have in our lives. Because we are human beings, we have this need, because we are people of the earth and children of our parents, we have this need for spiritual understanding. We have this need for spiritual remembering, because on a soul level, we absolutely already know the truth. We have a need to know and to remember that there is more than what our five senses tell us there is going on in the world. To know that we are never stuck. We have a need to know that we live in this field of possibility, that we live in this field of absolute potential, and that presence lives within us also, and that it fills our lives. And so Ernest Holmes also says, intuitively, we sense that every person in their native state is some part of the manifestation of the eternal principle. And that the entire problem of limitation, evil, suffering, and uncertainty is not God ordained, but is the result of ignorance. It's the result of ignorance on our part. The truth that we are immersed in that one, and that it is God's good pleasure to give us the kingdom. That it is its nature to unfold. All of those things are due to our ignorance. And so the reason that we feel stuck, the reason that we see the world as being stuck, is because we have forgotten who we are. And we have forgotten the very nature of life. And so in the Science of Mind textbook, it also says universal principles. That means like the principle of love and wholeness and life and good, all of those principles are never respecters of persons. The universe has no favorites. And it goes on to say, therefore it is written, and let him that is athirst come, and whosoever will, let him take the water of life freely, from Revelation 22:17. It is available for all of us, but we are the ones that must do the taking. And we do the taking through our acceptance of that truth and our embodying that truth and our recognition of that truth and our recognition that we aren't separate or apart or distinct from that infinite one. And so when we feel stuck in our lives, when we feel like, and it seems like the world has gone to hell in a handbasket, it is a prayer request to you. It is a prayer request for you to remember the truth, for you to get back in alignment in your thinking with that divine presence. It is a prayer request for you to remember and to embody and to be that truth, that there is only one, that one is everywhere present, in and through and around everything, and it is infinite. It is boundless. It knows no limitation and no obstruction. It's a prayer request for you to remember that. It is asking you to remember that so that you might be an avenue through which it might come into this world. Because when your thinking is in alignment and when your attention is in alignment with that truth, you become an avenue for it to come into this world. That's how prayer works. I've read many times, and I forget exactly how it goes, but prayer doesn't move God. It moves us out of our belief that it isn't possible back into a place where it can come through us, that which is already available, that which already is. And so in that chapter, in The Science of Mind, Ernest Holmes also says, by thinking, we can bring into our experience whatsoever we desire, if we think correctly, and become a living embodiment of our thoughts. This is not done by holding thoughts, but by knowing the truth. When we know the truth, we get our unbelief out of the way, and like a funnel, that energy, that life force energy of good and of truth can flow into us and through us and into our lives. And so you remember that I said that God creates through self-contemplation or through self-recognition. We are a microcosm of that macrocosm. We create in our own lives the exact same way as that. What that means is that when we recognize the truth that is already present, we create an opening for it. In prayer, we recognize the truth is present and it is only in potential instead of in actuality. And as we recognize that it is here in potential, we create an avenue for it to manifest itself in actuality. So that means as we embody the idea of, say, wholeness, that wholeness is an attribute of God, therefore wholeness is the very nature of our being. As we embody that idea, then wholeness is reflected into our lives as health and as vitality and as our own sense of enoughness. As we embody the truth of abundance, that we live in an opulent and infinite universe whose nature is absolute good, as we embody that truth, then that abundance gets reflected into our lives as financial well-being and as plenty of friends and as plenty of opportunities and as plenty of whatever it is that you deem to make life good. We become the conduit for that plenty to express. As we embody the truth of unconditional love, our relationships become easier. We become more compassionate. It's easier to have compassion for the person that you don't agree with their point of view. As we embody peace, things around us become more peaceful, and we become less reactionary, which in turn makes things even more peaceful. Because what we hold in consciousness, what we believe, what we hold in our conscious active thinking, and what we hold in our subconscious belief system gets reflected into our life. That is called mental equivalence. The world reflects what it is that we hold in mind. And so I would like to invite you to join me in a meditation right now so that we can change the ideas of what it is that we're holding in our minds. And so I invite you to close your eyes and to become still. And just to become aware of that place within you where there already is perfect peace. That stillness that is at the very center of your being. Here within lies the part of you that is beyond personality, that is beyond ego, that is beyond any part of you that receives its identity from the outside world. Here, in this place of stillness, in this place of silence, we touch the part of us that is the light and the love of the divine. Here, we touch the essence of our own spirit. Here within lies our own Christ nature, one with the infinite. Within us and all around us lies the kingdom of God. For we live in this presence. And this presence lives within us. Here there is no separateness, no divisions, no dualism. Only the infinite beingness of the One. Here is peace. Here is power. Here is love. From this divine center within our own beingness, we bring peace into the world. For here we are safe, we are secure, we are whole. From this divine center, we bring love into the world. From this divine center, we bring wholeness. from this divine center, we bring the light of the divine. This communion and this oneness is available to us at all times. Just requires our stopping and our turning to it. So here we rest. And so I invite you to begin to bring your attention back to the room, to your body, and to the seat you're sitting in. And to open your eyes. And so my invitation to you is to remember. To remember that the infinite potential of God is always right where you are. That divine presence, consciousness, life intelligence, God, spirit, has no favorites. It gives to all alike, and giving of itself is what it does. Giving, unfolding, expressing is its very nature. To remember that we do the taking, and we do the taking through our awareness. Through our awareness that all that it is present at every single point in this universe. At the center of our lives, at the center of our homes, the center of our places of work, at the center of our heart, and the center of our mind. Our job is to accept and to know, and then to go out in the world and act as if that were the truth. And so my invitation to you also then is to do spiritual practice, to read spiritual materials and to study and to take classes and to meditate and to do affirmative prayer so that you might remember those truths, because they become a part of your physical makeup, and you can move back into that place when life gets rocky, when things get tumultuous. Use the tools that you have so that you might bring greater good into your life and ever greater good into this world. And so here's my chapter 1 recap of the Science of Mind textbook. We are immersed in and filled with an infinite potential and an infinite power for good. It is everywhere present and the cause of all. As we embody the realization that it is within us and around us and the very nature of our life, we become an avenue for it to express in a greater way and in ever greater ways as good and ever greater good. And so may your spiritual practice and your spiritual study and your study of the science of mind support you in creating the life of your heartfelt desires and in creating a world of peace and a world of love and a world of oneness. And so blessings to each and every single one of you on your path, and thank you for being on this path and for giving way to that divine presence that is all around you and within you. Blessings to all of you. And so we've started a new practice here recently, which is for me to give you a couple of minutes to write down, jot down some notes if you want. On your inside of your bulletin, there's one side that says notes. reflections on the other side, and intentions. So I'm going to give you a couple of minutes to do that. And if you need a pen, would you raise your hand? Good, we're good. So if you can wrap up that last idea right there. And I invite you to join me in an affirmative prayer. And so, yes, indeed, we are answering that call to prayer within our own beingness to remember. And so we take our attention right now from this world of the material, this world of old causation, this world of effect, and instead we turn our attention to that cause. That cause that we've been talking about all morning, that is none other than the presence of God. The presence of that infinite one from which all things have sprung forth. That one infinite presence that is the miraculous, that is the beautiful, that is the glorious, that is magnificence itself. This one infinite creative intelligence from which all things have come is the very fabric of life itself. For it is this infinite life force energy that is love and beauty and peace and good without bound that fills all of time and all of space with its own beingness. For this one is everywhere present, in and through and around all things, in and through and as all things. And so we turn from this limited perspective to the perspective of infinite, to the perspective of absolute potential, to that void that is filled with all that has yet to come, all that is yet to be. And knowing that it is out of this infinite creativity and this love that our lives are unfolding. And so I recognize today that we walk with this presence, and that we walk in this presence, and that we walk as this presence everywhere we go. That presence leads us and guides us, and is the intelligence within our minds leading us and guiding us. I recognize and know that that presence is the truth of absolute wholeness. And right now, that wholeness The order and the balance and the harmony of God are expressing themselves in every single cell within our bodies as physical health, as wholeness of our own perception of who we are, as self-esteem and self-confidence and an accurate self-perception of who we really are. I know that presence that is that presence of peace and beauty and order is unfolding itself right now in our homes and in our places of work. That absolute intelligence right now is unfolding itself through every single one of our politicians, through the policymakers, through the Senate and the House, and every part of the government of this country. They are each being led and guided by something deep and abiding, and it is the light of the divine, the absolute intelligence, leading and guiding so that the whole of this planet and the oneness of humanity might thrive and flourish and be all that it can be. And so it is with a heart filled with gratitude for this truth, for the recognition of this presence and this power and this beingness. It is in that I release this word into that creative law of the universe, knowing that as we embody it, and as we believe it, and as we turn our attention to it, we create a space for it to come into this world. And so it is unfolding itself in our lives right now as an abundance of good. And for this I give thanks. And so I release this, and I say, and so it is.